On this episode of Scripps News Reports,
there will be an increase in maternal complications and maternal deaths.
Extremists have once again put abortion access in the hands of this Supreme Court.
I believe that law represents what Arizonans believe, that is, that life is precious.
A battle rocking the ballot.
No exceptions for rape or incest, nor does it account for complications during pregnancy.
Abortion and reproductive rights in a tug of war with real-life impacts.
Some of the murkiness in these abortion laws is a feature and not a bug.
Some of us believe that abortion is in fact the murder of children.
Our reporters in key states. This half hour, hear from people, not pundits. Their own views, their own lives.
He has said he is proud of what he did. Proud?
Now on this episode of Scripps News Reports, Path to the White House. I'm Addie Guajardo reporting from the Arizona State Capitol. I live and work here in Arizona and have been on the front lines reporting as the state recently affirmed, then repealed a Civil War era law virtually banning all abortions. That law said to be taken off the books, but future laws here are uncertain, as they are in many other states across America. This issue has the potential to control the fate of the White House and of Congress in November, not to mention the control of the state houses and legislatures. In the half hour ahead, the impact on the ballot and Vice President Kamala Harris's role in the fight. Plus, hear from real women, all voters, and why they're passionate about this issue. The desert and diverse landscape that covers Arizona has been luring settlers for centuries. And in a stunning move, the state Supreme Court turned back the clock this April, resurrecting a 160-year-old abortion ban.
In those 160 years, the Arizona legislature never took the step of repealing this statute.
Jennifer Pyant, a research scholar at the Arizona State University Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law, says that move left the pre-statehood abortion ban in the books.
This is an issue that really emerged across a number of different states in the chaos and the aftermath of the Dobbs decision.
Breaking news just in, Roe v. Wade has officially been overturned.
The U.S. Supreme Court overturning abortion rights sent states spinning as they navigated uncharted territory.
It just makes it difficult to make basic choices about your health and well-being.
The changes ignited confusion that continues today, nearly 2 years after the U.S. Supreme Court dismantled Roe v. Wade. Since the ruling, at least 14 states made abortion illegal at nearly every stage with limited or no exceptions, varying laws casting doubt on clarity. Or are these laws regarding abortion bans meant to be murky?
I am of the opinion that some of the murkiness in these abortion laws is a feature and not a bug for anti-abortion politicians.
Forcing medical providers to face tough decisions.
Providers in this space almost have to go and get their law degree.
Laws facing perpetual court challenges.
New constitutional amendments can be drafted, and I think it's kind of an unclear, very much shifting and changing legal landscape.
Efforts are ramping up in Arizona for a ballot initiative that would enshrine in the state constitution a right to an abortion, a law set to supersede any previous laws and reduce confusion.
I decided to collect and bring them back to my family so that they too could participate in the signing.
A move playing out across the country as several states seek to put the abortion question to voters. The murkiness of these laws on full display. The election in November will ultimately be a choice between two men, both of whom have evolved their views on abortion over the years. Here's our Deputy Political Director, Joe St. George.
Let's start with President Biden and the fact that his 2024 position on abortion hasn't always been his position. He has openly said that his Catholic faith makes it one of the most challenging issues for him in public life. In the early 1970s, then Senator Biden said Roe went too far. That is not President Biden's position today.
It'll be all of us who restore those rights for women in America.
This year, the president is campaigning on bringing back Roe. Earlier this year, as Vice President Kamala Harris became the first to visit an abortion clinic while holding that office. Efforts to protect reproductive rights played a key role in nominating and confirming Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson to the Supreme Court. As for former President Trump, his position is very different, but also nuanced. Like President Biden, it's a view that's evolved over the years. Earlier in his life, former President Trump supported the right to choose.
I was proudly the person responsible.
In recent weeks, the former president has said that he was proud for his work in overturning Roe and returning abortion laws to states. He accomplished that by appointing 3 Supreme Court justices who ultimately supported that. And in a recent interview with Time magazine, Mr. Trump said that he was fine with states monitoring pregnancies and even prosecuting someone for getting an abortion. Trump, though, has spoken out against some state abortion laws. For instance, he said he was against an 1864 law in Arizona that restricted abortion there. President Biden and former President Trump do agree on one thing. Both are opposed to any national ban on abortion. Joe St. George, Scripps News, Washington.
When we talk about abortion rights, it's rare to find someone who doesn't have an opinion. Throughout this half hour, we are shining a light on those perspectives. There is little support for illegal abortions in all cases. Just about 1 in 10 want that. Most Americans support legality in all or most cases. Younger Americans in general support more expansive abortion rights. Still to come, a diverse group of women opening up about what they believe and why. Plus, the impacts of all this on your ballot and millions of others. This is Scripps News Report's Path to the White House.
We gave it back to the states, and the states are working very brilliantly, in some cases conservative, in some cases not conservative, but they're working, and it's working the way it's supposed to.
We all must understand who is to blame. Former President Donald Trump did this. During his campaign in 2016, Donald Trump said women should be punished for seeking an abortion. Many of you have asked, why am I here at this facility in particular?
It was a historic first.
The crisis is affecting many, many people in our country.
A vice president at a clinic that performs abortions. The stop at the Planned Parenthood clinic in Minnesota this past March, part of her reproductive freedoms tour, given a moment the administration had been warning about. The overturning of what was once settled law, a post-Roe era with different laws in different states that drove many voters to the polls in the 2 years that followed. And this cycle, 1 in 3 voters say abortion policy will determine their vote. The issue now a central message of President Biden's 2024 campaign.
I'm running to make Roe v. Wade the law of the land again.
In Texas, you are forced to carry that pregnancy, and that is because of Donald Trump.
And Vice President Harris becoming the administration's and campaign's foremost voice on the topic.
This is a moment for us to stand and fight.
But while the headlines show her emerging as the voice, for those that work close to her, it was no surprise.
When Vice President Harris was a prosecutor, she focused on crimes against women and children. And as a part of that, she really takes issue with abortion bans with no exceptions for rape.
Rachel Palermo was the VP's deputy communications director, working with her for more than 3 years. Now a lawyer in private practice.
It was a natural fit for the vice president to want to lead on protecting reproductive rights. And the question was never if she was going to do it. It really was how, because this is something that is so near and dear to her. And she really views this as an issue of protecting fundamental freedoms. And that's how she thinks about it. It really is something that matters to her at her core.
And for the vice president, it was not a new mantle to carry. While in the Senate, gaining notoriety for this exchange with Supreme Court Justice nominee Brett Kavanaugh.
Can you think of any laws that give the government the power to make decisions about the male body?
I'm not thinking of any right now, Senator.
It was also a top focus of her unsuccessful 2020 presidential campaign.
This is the 6th debate we have had in this presidential cycle, and not nearly one word with all of these discussions about health care on women's access to reproductive health care, which is under full-on attack in America today.
At the White House, a year before Roe was overturned, the same day the Justice Department sued Texas for the 6-week abortion ban, which deputized citizens to report abortion seekers, the vice president hosting abortion providers and patients at the White House, and issuing this video message on the 49th anniversary of Roe v. Wade, predicting the ruling's future.
The court could overturn Roe versus Wade.
So while visiting that clinic may have been a historic first, for Harris, it was just the next step out of the background, now leading on an issue central to the 2024 campaign. Serena Marshall, Scripps News, Washington.
Far too often on programs like these, you hear from political pundits without hearing from the people actually impacted by new laws. We are offering you something different. The voices of people, not pundits. I recently sat down with a diverse group of women to ask them what they think about abortion and why. Joining me right now is Arizona State Senator Eva Birch, a Democrat seeking re-election and a nurse practitioner. JoJo Sweat, a Marine Corps veteran working for Common Defense, supporting veteran and progressive issues. Heather Litchfield, a regional coordinator with Students for Life of America. And Anna Kate Sheehan. She runs the Arizona Christian University Student Organization for Students for Life of America. Where do you stand on abortion rights? And we'll start with Eva right over here.
I certainly support access to abortion for people here in Arizona and across the country.
I'm here because I, like Senator Birch, feel the same exact way about the access for abortion for all. I personally have had to use abortion services twice in my life.
I stand on the pro-life side of the issue. I believe that every baby inside a woman's womb is deserving of every chance to have a life outside of the womb.
I think that abortion is a key issue in America and all across the world today. We see that it is the greatest human rights disservice that has ever happened.
Eva, I wanted to start off with you. You shared a very personal story on the Senate floor.
Once I realized that my pregnancy was once again not progressing, was once again not viable, it was so important to me to make sure that people understood what abortion care is like for patients in Arizona. My response has been overwhelming, and it's been mostly people thanking me, but also people letting me know their own stories, their own situations, some of them very similar to mine. I certainly have also had a number of people who reached out in opposition and expressing their concerns.
We work really hard to make abortion illegal and unthinkable. Like pregnancy resource centers are one way that we can reach women and say, hey, look, these are all the other options that you have. We want to come alongside you. We want to empower you, because choosing life is empowering women.
To say that someone should have a baby regardless of their circumstances is very unfair, and I think is mostly due to a lack of life experience. I went to war after having an abortion in the United States Marine Corps, where I was aggressed for 10 years, a victim of military sexual trauma, assault, harassment on an everyday basis. I did not have the financial means to have another baby, and we were getting ready to go to war. And it was a factor on how I would get to progress in my career. The second time I had to make that decision was due to a non-viable ectopic pregnancy after my return from Iraq.
Well, one thing that I just want to clear up, pro-life laws never don't allow for miscarriage treatment or ectopic pregnancy treatments such as the ones that have been stated. A miscarriage treatment means that your baby has passed away and you need to have a similar procedure as an abortion.
So just to be clear on that, if I may, whether or not the intention of people who are against abortion is for laws to be a certain way, we still have to operate in reality. And how are these laws actually going to play out in practice? So we went to the emergency department and my miscarriage stalled. And I stopped miscarrying. I had an ultrasound and I was still pregnant. There was no heartbeat and they would not give me a procedure. They did offer me some medication that would make me start bleeding again, and said when I had bled enough that maybe a procedure would be available to me. So to suggest that because an intention of an organization or the intention of a law based on a movement is one thing, it does not mean that that's how it's going to play out in reality.
You also can't write laws permitting abortion on the hypothetical that the child's going to grow up in a difficult circumstance, or the hypothetical that the child's going to grow up in poverty.
Should abortions be allowed in cases of rape and incest? Heather?
No, they should not. We also see that those babies should not be paying for the crimes of their fathers.
JoJo, this is a very personal topic for you. Would you like to respond to that?
It's difficult because it's such a viewpoint that I just don't understand. I'm really sad for the women that come behind me that don't have the same rights that I had just a few years ago. I'm really sad that I served in this United States military and made sacrifices and gave up my body, and that I still can't have the autonomy of my own body.
Nearly 24 states have banned or restricted abortion since Roe v. Wade was overturned in 2022. Are these abortion bans working?
I would say yes, because we see that we had 32,000 babies born that would have been aborted after these bans weren't put in place. So that's 32,000 lives that were saved due to these abortion bans.
I think that people are feeling frightened, and I think that there's a lot of confusion because everything has been up in the air for so long, and because things are being challenged, and patients and individuals are just not sure what's available to them and what the future holds, and I don't have good answers for them.
Do you believe abortion rights being on the ballot is going to energize voters to go to the ballot box?
I know it will. I get a lot of enthusiasm everywhere. People are like, you know what? I am definitely voting this year because my life actually depends on it.
Are students talking about getting out to vote because abortion could potentially be on the ballot?
Absolutely. I would say the students at my campus and also other students that I know from other campuses in this region and also across the nation are definitely going to be voting this November.
So it's going to bring out voters who we don't usually see in elections. But again, I would look at the data and look at how historically in other states this has brought people to the ballot box.
Anna, Kate, and Heather, you find yourself in a very interesting situation given former President Donald Trump's stance on abortion. Is his message resonating with you?
We see that Donald Trump has kind of flip-flopped a little bit on what he wants with the abortion measure. Donald Trump does claim to be pro-life, so we're encouraging him to do whatever is necessary to make those views known.
Do you plan to vote for Trump?
I do plan to vote for Donald Trump this November.
Anna Kate?
Yes, I do.
You plan to vote for Trump?
I do, yeah.
Jojo?
I do not plan to vote for Donald Trump.
Eva?
Trump is, in my opinion, an unethical choice, and I'll be voting for Biden-Harris.
Up next, the impacts of this debate on the ballot. This half hour, you have heard from women about the state of America's abortion laws. Now the question, how will it impact the ballot in November? Forrest Saunders reports from another vital state, Florida.
Yes on board! Yes on board!
In Florida, a battle of the ballot
Women deserve better!
has been raging for more than a month now.
I think what's at stake is bodily autonomy for women.
Those for and against abortion in a war of words with real-world consequences come November 5th.
I've held too many women in my arm crying because of what they've done. They can't bring that child back.
The fight is over this, Amendment 4, a chance to return Florida to about 24 weeks just before viability, and eliminate the new 6-week ban, which abortion advocates fear is already harming women in the state.
So there are huge public health implications to banning abortion in such a large state, especially one that is surrounded by water, aside from on its northern border where it's surrounded by states that already have abortion bans in effect.
That's Lauren Brenzel, who's heading the Yes on 4 campaign. Her work won't be easy, considering Florida requires a 60% majority to change the state's constitution.
We feel solid about that 60%. It's just really important that people understand that this is not a partisan issue. It's a healthcare issue.
Both sides will tell you the stakes are high. John Stenberger, who heads Pro-Life Liberty Council Action, among them.
When these constitutional amendments are passed, if they're passed, they become permanent. I mean, you can't change that overnight. It's very difficult to change a constitutional amendment. And in Florida, it's the final battle in Florida on this issue.
And Florida isn't alone. It's just one of at least 12 other states that will or could have abortion regulations on the ballot this year. Some, like Nebraska, would be similarly focused on viability. Others, like Colorado, have competing efforts. One would ban abortion, the other protect it.
This should be a decision between a woman and her doctor.
It has President Joe Biden's campaign leaning in hard on the issue, and political experts say it might be a solid way to capture younger, especially female voters.
For the Democrats, yes, it's their best issue, and it's the Republicans' worst issue.
That's Professor Pope Mac McCorkle with Duke. While voters in 7 states backed pro-abortion ballot measures in the last couple of years, McCorkle says we don't have a lot of data showing how much it helped or hurt statewide candidates.
The main example that people point to is 2022, when the Kentucky Republicans put on a very strict anti-abortion requirement, and it looks like it helped Governor Beshear. It kind of became maybe the central issue even in that campaign.
For his part, former President Donald Trump has backed state rights on abortion and failed to offer a clear opinion of what's too far or not far enough.
The states will determine by vote or legislation or perhaps both, and whatever they decide must be the law of the land.
His supporters, meanwhile, continued to downplay abortion's significance in the race, including Florida GOP Chair Evan Power.
If you look at the other states where they've had similar language, it's not changed turnout in any way. And I think what you're going to see is the Democrats ran last time on that issue. It's not going to make a difference this time either.
The Sunshine State, like the rest of the nation, will now wait to find out if that's true.
Let their hearts beat! My body, my choice!
That's as the battle over abortion on this year's ballot grows louder each day. For Scripps News, I'm Forrest Saunders reporting.
And with that, many thanks for watching this half hour. This is episode 1 of a special 10-part series on Scripps News Reports. Our mission here, to explore real issues across America in a real way. Next week, crime and gun violence. Join us back here for that. For now, I'm Addie Guajardo at Arizona's state capitol for Scripps News Reports.